Hello, everybody. I'm Mario the Artisan Rogue, and tonight this card was a little bit different. For those of you that are first watching these videos, every once in a while I'll pick a card from this Best Self Co deck, and it has themes or subjects that I can vlog about or something. It was originally meant for blogging, but anyway. So this one is: what are your views on fame and celebrity culture? It's a little surprising considering that the other ones were a little bit more. I mean, this is still a personal view sort of card, but the other ones dealt a little bit more with one's you know job or career path or some things like that. But I mean, this is actually kind of a fun one. So I had written down a few notes on it, and starting off, I mean, this it's a funny thing for me because with celebrities in general, I can, for the most part, segment myself away from a lot of what they may say, whether that's politically, religiously, or otherwise, and I can just separate myself and go, you know what, they play characters that I like and have liked in past movies. Does that affect whether or not I would support them moving forward? Occasionally it can, more often than not as I get older. But that has more to do with the fact that it almost goes back to that old adage of never meet your heroes sort of thing. And then when it's, when somebody's, handler doesn't really take good care of them, or, that sort of thing happens where a PR nightmare hatches on somebody, too many have influence that they don't claim responsibility for. This isn't anything new. This has been around for as long as there have been people of any sort of fame and influence. And this is, before television, before radio. I'm sure of it. Historically and just culturally, people do tend to look up to heroes and icons, whether we're talking about mythology, stories, told around the campfire, or somebody who's just done something extraordinary within your group of friends or family or something along that line. Because of that, I believe that we tend to put these people on pedestals. I mean, you could, relegate that to something like thinking about Greek mythology and how we tend to put these stories and these heroes, up on these pedestals from a literary sense. But at one point in time, these were more than just tales. These were beliefs and more that were the foundation of certain societies. And all sort of cultures around the world have these sort of things. Now, I'm starting off with this only because of the fact that that's the only way I could really approach this. So fast forward to today, and this is something I've touched on before, with the huge advent of social media, you suddenly have the ability to be able to reach out and connect with any number of people who are famous on all sorts of levels, from somebody possibly like Tom Hanks all the way down to maybe your local, weatherman. And because of that, those people, depending on how they are or who they are, will wield a certain amount of influence. So I mean, that's the reason why you end up seeing them in car commercials, local and national, or peddling any sort of things. I mean, check out Japanese commercials with American stars and you'll see some extremely strange things over there, because from what I understand, a lot of people in Japan do like aspects of our Western culture just as much as you'll get kids over here, and even adults like myself, that really love the anime and manga and other stuff that comes out of Japan, or just in general culturally, from the martial arts to the food to architecture, you name it, that sort of thing. So there's influences on all sorts of levels that even go beyond fame, but they have their own sort of fame in a different way. So some of them can parlay it into good things like social awareness, education, or maybe just general positive vibes. And that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that aspect. Some of the ones I wrote down that I feel have that going for them. Definitely Chris Evans. He plays Captain America in the MCU movies, and one of my favorite musicians, Lisa Loeb, is another. And then although I don't believe he's anywhere on social media, Keanu Reeves' reputation precedes himself. Like, for instance, and I don't believe this is an urban legend, I do believe this is true from a couple different sources that I've read. When he was on The Matrix, the first one, they weren't getting paid really well for, the effects team wasn't getting paid very well, or as well as they should have. And I know that he took a certain amount of his money and donated it back, not donated, gave it to the cast as a thank you. for their hard work and that sort of thing. And he has a lot of other stuff that goes really good along that line, but he doesn't do that from the aspect of like, hey, look at me, I'm doing this sort of thing. But, even in that respect, celebrity fame can be a very strange thing. I mean, something that affected me when I was younger was when Kurt Cobain killed himself. And I know that in interviews you see with him, he seemed, that's a whole other box of rocks to get into, but the whole aspect of what he went through was pretty intense and pretty painful and pretty sad. That in his case, it was something where fame was a burden, and it definitely affected him in a lot of ways. But for some people, it's an addiction. And I'm talking about your C and D level actors and actresses and people that maybe get like, oh God, that one girl that she was on, I think Maury Povich or something, like, I don't even know what, but now like the Cash Me Outside girl or something like that. And the only reason I even know that is because like every once in a while you'll see like these sponsored adverts that pop up like in Google or Yahoo News or something, and it's got these people featured. And I don't even know who half of these people are, nor do I really care. But it's interesting to see that these people kind of pop up and that they're polarizing enough that the comment sections fill up with people either saying, who the hell is this person, or why would I care? Well, you're taking the time to comment and all these sort of things. And we end up, even though it's in a negative connotation, we end up following and being influenced by these people. So that's one thing that I can see where a negative aspect can certainly come into play there. And that happens almost, two or threefold when it comes to politicians or religious figures or something particularly scandalous. I mean, it doesn't really matter who the president or a senator is or anything else like that. If something really screwball happens, that can, the fame, the infamy, whatever that surrounds them, can cause some polarizing effects that just ripple throughout that society that they have their pulse on. So the other thing too about it is that it's, honestly, it's fleeting and it's fickle. There's a reason why there's that whole saying, the 15 minutes of fame. And I've seen people that, I don't know, I've seen people that maybe got famous for a particular role, or they did something really good, and then they get a little taste of what that fame is like, and it never quite leaves them. I'm going to tell you guys about one particular individual. I used to work security in Kansas City at a big entertainment district called Power and Light, and I was a security guard there for a long time. Now, I would work the door on occasion, but at one point I ended up always working the door. And there was this larger guy, probably about, I don't know, I'd say he was maybe 6'8", something like that. I don't remember his name, honestly. I know next to nothing about football. It's just never anything that I was into. But I recall that he was some sort of retired football player. I don't know if he got injured. I don't know what happened. I don't actually know how any of that works. But he used to come in all the time. But he never paid. We just had like a $5 cover to get in, and that was more, to anyone that's ever worked in the bar business or been to bars, you know how they can get, especially a really popular one, can get full, or you just have management that wants to earn money on the door. So it was $5 to come in, and I remember working the front door, and he was like, oh, hey, and I won't use the name, but my manager at the time, the guy that actually worked with me on security, would let him in all the time. So he name dropped him, and he said, he lets me in all the time. He knows me. And I was like, oh, that's great. I don't know who you are. And so I said, it'll be $5. And there was something about that, and I'll never forget that. It really seemed to agitate him to no end, because, who was I to question him on, the veracity of him knowing the guy that I worked with or whatever it was. And he kind of tried to walk past me. I'm like, hey, man, it's $5. If you can find him or have him call me or something, I'd be more than willing to let you in. But right now, we just got to keep the line moving. And, you can certainly talk to my boss who's on staff right now and see what's going on. He started getting flustered, and I probably shouldn't have been that way toward him. But at the exact same time, that influence that happens there is somebody who at one point in time may have been a very popular football player. I don't know. I honestly don't know. And all I can tell you is that the other people in line were watching that. Now, had I let this person in that I didn't really know, number one, that would have been my failure as a security guard number two, why let somebody get away with that? It's just $5. If you really were a football player, I would assume you would put some money away or saved it or something. Certainly somebody who played football made more money than I did as a security guard. So, but he just seemed really agitated by the fact that I just didn't know him. And it got to the point to where 2 weeks later I ended up hearing about it and I got reprimanded over it. And I thought about that and they were like, well, he's well known. And I was like, by who? By who? I don't think anyone in line really recognized him. I mean, at best, he was older, looked a little slovenly, and didn't really handle himself like anyone that was used to being in the public eye. So I didn't really care. It was nothing more than that. But at that point in time, I remember thinking to myself, fame is a very strange thing because there are people that will act that way. And I saw plenty of famous people come into that place where I worked. Some of them were amazing. I remember that, and one of them was the lead singer of AC/DC. Now, he came in with what I believe were members of his family, and they just came in real quick. He paid the cover and tipped the waitress really well, did a whole bunch of things that were just amazing. And just in general, there were some people that recognized him. He was very nice about it, and he did sign some autographs. I remember a few things like that happening. This was like, probably about 11:30 or midnight, something like that. I don't remember if they were playing in Kansas City or what the reason was. They had to have been. But he came in, and he was there with his family, and they were just wonderful people. But my best memory, honestly, of somebody that at least I recognized, and not because I followed a lot of wrestling at the time, was the wrestler Sheamus. He had come in, and like I said, I'm 5'10", and this is a man that completely towered over me. I'm not even joking, and maybe my memory has completely ballooned this out of, complete shape and form, but I swear to God, I didn't really come... I probably only came to his pec. The man was huge. He was wearing this sort of newsboy cap on, and very low key. And he was with two ladies, and I believe one of them was a sister of his. I don't know enough about him, but at any rate, he came in super low key, and I asked for his ID and everything. He gave it to me, no problem, nothing like that. And when I saw the name, I was like, "There's no way." And I kind of looked at him. And it was one of those wordless exchanges where I'm certain my face was like, "Are you really?" And he just kind of shook his head like this, like, and not like, like off-putting or anything else like that, just sort of an acknowledgement of what it was. And so he went in, and, soon enough, a lot of people that were into wrestling or knew who he was, because he was pretty big at that time. At least he was a rising star from what I understand. And he was just another guy that was really cool. He paid his tab. He hung out for a while. He just, I guess the two ladies wanted to come to see what the bar was like that I had been working at because of, where it was located. And they were just going bar to bar. But I remember he was another one that was super cool. They didn't go to the dance floor or anything. I remember seeing them sitting there and just drinking quietly and just being normal people. And I think that that's the thing with celebrity fame, is you'll get people that are on one extreme and then the other, which is something we all see happen on a daily basis if you open up your web browser and you look at the news. But because of that, it can affect your normal everyday people like me and stuff like that. So so this is something that I ended up thinking about. That celebrity culture can become magnified in some weird ways. Because of things like, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is. We can get really weird about how many likes, upvotes, comments, views we get on the media that we publish. I'll be completely honest. I would love it if I was getting thousands of views on these videos, but I also understand that for years, and I've had this YouTube channel for quite a long time, for many years, what I did was more middle of the road, and I would upload every great once in a while, and I wasn't really doing this for a factor that I wanted people to watch and then to become famous from it. Not at all. It was more along the line for me that I wanted to do something that I thought people might enjoy, and early on I had to kind of reinvent myself on some things. So I think a lot of people on YouTube do that. There are people that will just do anything. They'll do the sort of radical videos that are either reaction videos or other things, like anything to get a view, just to maybe make a few cents off of ad revenue or that sort of thing. But the point is that, when people get online, you do get people that once they start making videos and stuff, they do hope that people share them, that they spread the word, that they do different things with them. And that is a type of influence that they would like to have, but they also look up to the people that are far bigger than them. Like you take, for instance, Jack Black. He started a YouTube channel not that long ago. And I remember watching the first video, and it wasn't anything more than him, from what I remember, just talking and saying that it was going to be the most amazing and extreme video channel ever, or you know how he is. And so I thought, oh, okay, that's fine, but that probably still wasn't anything I would have watched. I love Jack Black. I think he's a great actor, a fantastic musician and singer. But I tend to like the YouTube channels that are a little bit more low key, regardless of who the people are, the personalities on them. That, you know, I'm more interested in the content. And I don't know, if there's anything that life has proven to me, especially with the advent of social media, which I have always thought is a weird way to put that connotatively. I love the name of a song by the band, one of my favorite bands, Bowling for Soup. It's called High School Never Ends. That is exactly what fame is like. Because when I was in school, there was a cadre of young women that were very well known. You know, they were popular, they were pretty, they dressed well. There were guys that always hung around with them, that sort of thing. Those were the guys that usually had the cars first. They were the ones that looked the best, you know, dressed the best. They just all this sort of thing. Didn't matter. I went to a number of schools all over the place because my family was military. So we went all over the place. And as I got older, segments of that still exist in workplaces, in social stratas where you're at bars, or maybe, you know, there's a club you belong to. I remember that stuff used to proliferate in groups, you know, from my reenactment groups, both Civil War and medieval, to art clubs, to, you know, you name it. And you'll see that sort of thing happen. And the art world is definitely one that, sadly, it happens in there. The crazy part is that if you're in a really good and positive thing, really famous artists, and I've yet to meet one. No, I take that back. There was one artist I met that I loved his work. Great guy. As far as if you were a woman, you could do no wrong if you went up to him for an autograph. If you were a dude, you probably didn't rate that high on his likability meter. So it was one of those things where when I met him, I was like, oh man, I really spent a lot of money on your books and stuff. This kind of sucks. But the good thing is that, you know, even though, you know, even throughout all of his fame and everything else like that, it didn't really matter. I didn't care after that. But there's been plenty of others that I've met that are famous within the illustration and fine art world that, you know, turned out to be amazing people. And that's something that's really kind of crazy about celebrity culture in general. Because not unlike what I was talking about with it being fickle earlier, I could name drop somebody like Brahm or Greg Manchess or any number of people that have been around in the illustration industry for a long time, even somebody like Julie Bell. And there's going to be people watching this video. They have no idea who they are. To me, amazing people and even more amazing artists. But I don't know. It's such a strange thing now that I'm, you know, the view I have on it is that it can be a good thing as long as it's a good person that's behind that celebrity, you know, influence and culture in general. But as a whole, I think it's kind of a strange thing that we'll take people and we'll put them on these pedestals, because that sort of thing happens even at jobs, you know. And sometimes it turns out, okay, do you have a really great personality? Do you have or you just have that look? Because that's something I've encountered in my life, you know. I'm not exactly GQ, although I don't think I'd ever want to be. I like being scruffy. And so because of that, I know there have been times where, and this is not even joking, I've had people that thankfully have had the wherewithal to tell me later, you know, like, you're not like how I assumed you were going to be. There's a lot of people that assume that, you know, I ride a motorcycle. I used to fall off my pedal bike all the time, okay? And so a motorcycle, no. In fact, no, I take it back. I did ride a Vespa once. Did not go well. Not at all. And, or, you know, like, you know, whatever. We all make our judgments based on the cover of a book. And so, but because of that, you know, it's no different than when you see somebody who's famous. You know, you see somebody with dreadlocks and facial tattoos and that sort of thing, and you assume that they're this particular sort of person. Likewise, if you see somebody that's super clean cut and, fit and has, like everything in the world that you would have wanted from this other safer zone, like, Uncle Jesse from Full House or something like that, back in his heyday, as a character. That's two different sort of things, and the people that really are behind them might be completely different. And so I think that's the final one, is that the whole aspect of celebrity fame and culture, man, that stuff is highly manufactured. It really is. And this got opened up to me, and this is what I'm going to end it on, because recently there's been a lot of talk that I've had with other fellow artists over, their presence on Instagram or YouTube, or however you put yourself out there, or even like when you're at a show and you're presenting who you are, like how much of that comes forward, how much is reality. Because on one side, and I think it was Jim Davis who was talking about this in the documentary Stripped, he was saying people really do want to know everything about everything. He even said, I'm not as funny or as interesting as the characters I drew, like Garfield and John. And so because of that, he finds himself in a situation where, well, what do you really tell people when you're in these sort of things? And so, that man, is one example of somebody who doesn't really put forth a lot of bravado or anything else like that. I mean, he's from an older generation, and, so he communicates through his cartoon. And the reason I'm saying it that way is because I think that in a weird way, there's a weird cartoonish vibe that people put out whenever they're online, or whether even when they're in person. I know that 9 times out of 10, when I first meet people, I'm very quiet. I don't say a whole hell of a lot. I tend to be a little bit reclusive. I'm, for the most part, a wallflower in a lot of ways. Except that when I started doing shows, and I started doing videos, and I started doing any number of things that I had to put this face in front of a camera or just in front of people, just to sell artwork or do whatever, one half of it was fun, because I do like doing this stuff, and I think it's kind of cool. But the other half of it was absolutely terrifying. It really is, because I have to go out there, and when I'm at a show, I have to put all of that aside. And I'm nobody famous. I am just a dude that occasionally shows up at shows, tries to sell stuff, and I am known by a few people just because I'm named after I'm not named after a famous video game character, but a lot of people assume I am. And so because of that, you get these, you do get a weird sort of sense of how all of that sort of weird fame works in there. And so getting back to it, I say this much about it. Fame is, like I said earlier, fleeting and fickle, and it's highly unattainable for 99% of us in the ways that we would imagine. There's some of us that don't want it, genuinely. I mean, I'm not looking for it, and I don't think a lot of the people that I have as colleagues or that I know are honestly really looking for it, unless they want to be a social media influencer, which, man, what kind of world is this? I mean, it's just really crazy to think that there are people out there that can do that sort of thing now, faster, quicker, and everything. Like, hey, there's Amazon links down in the description, there's this, there's that, I'm going to do a product review or an unboxing. That was unheard of. Just even within my lifetime a few years back, that just wasn't the norm. Now there's people that completely have fame and responsibility built around that sort of thing. And that is an amazing thing. I mean, that really is. Now, because of that, I do wonder, like, what's the next step? Where do we go from here? Like, what does that turn into? Because you already have, really famous people out there, like Sean Connery and others in the past, or and moving forward, and others like that they like I said before, have done car commercials, or they have their own liquor, or they're in a spot for like Bounce or Downy fabric softener or something like that. Terry Crews is a really good example of that. Somebody whose commercials make me laugh, and his influence on that is the humor that he brings forward. But he's also a highly positive guy that has dealt with toxic masculinity, something that he himself was a purveyor of, and he had self-admittedly was this negative, sort of masculinity prior when he was younger, and he changed on that. And I wonder what the next evolution is. Like, where are we going to go from here? Because I just don't have a way to grasp that. If somebody had told me, even back in 1991, there are going to be people on the internet that are going to be doing similar to what television commercials or radio commercials are about, but even more so, even more tendrils kind of going into our thought processes, because now you could be just scrolling through, Twitter or Instagram or any one of these things, and you'll see these random little like adverts pop up, some of them video, some of them not, and some of them may have celebrities. But I mean, I've even noticed that, the more I've become involved with Twitch, that you'll see people on there that are influencing and doing things. It's just a crazy world we live in right now. And the more I think about it, the more I don't know what the word really is. I would say overwhelming, but it isn't. At least not for me. It could be for a number of people. Not like I'm some big, yeah, that's not overwhelming for me. I mean, I get it. I understand where it's coming from, but not necessarily what the next step in evolution would be. I don't know. So, anyway, what are your thoughts on the whole internet celebrity kind of thing? And, is this something like, if you suddenly had to be in a situation where you were famous, what would you do? How would you handle that? I really want to know. In fact, that's something I'm probably going to start. I had thought about this. Whenever I do these sort of things, there's like a lot of questions I come up with, and I thought, man, I know a lot of people I could ask this to, just to get their reactions, or just to see what they think. And I think that would be really cool if you guys decide to comment back and let me know what you think on that. And if you did enjoy this video, then please subscribe if you haven't already. Maybe click the like button, and then there's the bell, like I said last time. So there's like 3 steps. 3 steps involved in following somebody on YouTube, which is just nuts to me. But I guess that's the thing. If you want to follow somebody, you got to go through all these steps. Because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Is that a good analogy? Is it? Not really sure. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I sincerely appreciate it. You all have a good night, and I'll be back with another video. And I want to throw this a little bit in real quick. So the last couple shows I did did get some really cool feedback on some stuff, and I had some people that were asking me if I was going to be reviewing any of the stuff that I use to do videos and to do artwork, and how I work and do some things. So there are videos coming that I started filming and piecing together and putting together for that. So I'm very much looking forward to sharing all of that with you guys. And if you guys do have questions, feel free to reach out to me. The email's down below, or you can message me. However, just go to even my blog at theartisanrogue.com and get a hold of me through there. Because I know there have been people that have been asking me like, oh, I kind of want to do the video stuff, but what's the camera you're using and what are the lights you're using? Believe it or not, a lot of this is really easy to get, but you can do a lot of this without a whole heck of a lot of money out of your pocket. And if it turns out that you really enjoy it, then start investing in it. A lot of the equipment I use, with the exception of the 920, the C920 camera that I'm using from Logitech right now, most of this stuff is the exact same equipment that I use whenever I'm doing videography for different projects. So it crosses over into a couple of different things. And I just turned into something that I could use here, but I also use it whenever I'm taking photographs of my artwork or other stuff like that. So, it's just, if you think smart about how you put the stuff together, you can get started really easily on a low budget. I had the opportunity over years to build up enough stuff and junk that, I've managed to put together a studio that was able to work for me on a lot of things. But I had been saving up for years a lot of equipment and collecting things that could work for me. So, anyway, thanks again for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.